So before we begin the actual design process, I want to talk more about what branding is. So let's define branding. Seth Godin has a really great definition of brand that addresses what branding embodies beyond your visual design identity. He says that a brand is the set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that, when combined, account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. Essentially, your brand, your visual identity, the experience the consumer has with your shop, your product, or your service culminates to how they see your company and your brand. And I believe that branding done right can truly humanize a company. So then, what is brand identity? A logo, packaging, typography, and personality all represent a brand along with customer service, price, product quality, and corporate responsibility, but that idea of a brand is a bit more intangible. As we discussed earlier, it's emotional, visual, historical, and human. It's this whole experience that separates different products and services in a world where quality is often comparable or the same. Brand identity, though, on the other hand, includes things like the logo, the typography, the colors, packaging, and messaging, and it complements and reinforces the already existing reputation of a brand. Brand identity attracts new customers to a brand while making existing customers still feel at home. It's both outward and inward facing. It's vital that brand identity be consistent. So when we talk about this idea of brand identity, we're thinking about it from a visual perspective. And it's important for it to be consistent because it's representing and reinforcing the emotions that people already have established about a brand. The message portrayed by brand identity components needs to be clear, and it needs to be the same no matter where it's displayed. So with all of that being said, what is brand identity design? Basically, it's brand identity applied. Brand identity design is the actual process of creating the logo, the color palette, picking your typefaces, and other visual assets that will relate to your business or the business of a potential client if you're working as a freelancer or a designer in the market. Now I want to talk a bit about the marketing matrix. All of this branding talk relates directly back to the marketing of your business. To me, marketing is a really vital and important aspect of the corporate world, of the business world, and even of the creative and small business world. Because essentially, marketing is sales support. And what are we all trying to do if you're running your Etsy shop or you're working in advertising, or maybe you're a creative artist trying to sell your art? You're trying to sell your product. So marketing helps to service that sale, right? So marketing for companies is now a really established part of most company processes. No matter how big or how small, it's important to have a marketing plan. It's important to have a marketing strategy. If you're a small business owner or a creative entrepreneur, you may be focused on designing and creating products, but the reality we have to face is that old idea of if you make it, they will come. It's actually a fallacy. If you make it, you have to market it in order to get people to be exposed to your product and then hopefully make a purchase of your goods or your service. So what is even more important is that marketing and the branding that is related to that very marketing allows you to differentiate yourself from the other potential competitors in the market. The way a company communicates to its internal and external audiences, and when I talk about external audiences, I'm thinking about consumers, it's really critical. For example, a big company like Nike, it's the company's marketing and message that has differentiated Nike from all the other shoe brands that may offer a similar product. Why someone decides to go buy Nikes versus a pair of Adidas or New Balance completely relates to the brand identity that they've portrayed. So when we talk about Nike, and we look at the brand identity that they've created, that idea of just do it, right? And the athletes that they portray in their advertising. It's almost aspirational feeling. But then it also connects communities because they truly believe that anyone can be an athlete, right? So just going for it, just doing it, really plays into this brand identity that Nike has established. And that's very different than something like, say, Adidas or New Balance. And often because of that brand identity that the company has established, people choose Nike over these others. So how does all of this apply to a small business? Even a small business has to differentiate and market itself. You're not going to sell anything. You're not going to get clients as a freelancer. You're not going to sell artwork. You're not going to be able to sell your product or your service if you aren't telling the world all about it. And your logo is just the beginning of the identity, and it will often influence all of the following. Say you're an Etsy shop owner. Your logo and the design within that logo, the color palette within that logo will influence how your Etsy shop or your website looks and feels. The words that you use in your product description, social media posts, that all relates back to the voice that you are giving your brand identity. The banner at the top of your page, the icons that you use on your social media should all be consistent to what you see within your logo and identity. The way you respond even to customer requests, the words that you use, the colors that you use in your shop, even down to the typefaces and fonts that you use. You want to be consistent and cohesive across the board when it comes to your branding. So why is branding important to a small business? The reality is that people often choose their products based on their perceived value rather than their actual value. Think about why people pay more for designer goods versus budget buys. What are their expectations of how those products will perform, and also the perceptions that people in the world around them will have because they have that product. All of this plays into branding, and even a small business can implement these ideas into their strategy to better place them in the market so that they can be competitive and gain sales and gain customers and things like that.